Hi everybody, Rick Mast here on the Rick Mast Show on the Kenny Wallace Show platform. I want to talk to you today a little bit about this charter deal, okay? The NASCAR charter deal. We went to Atlanta Motor Speedway Sunday and I spent the morning in the garage area trying to talk to some folks and try to figure out what was going on. And then when that ended, we went up in the grandstands to watch the race. I had my children with me, went to the grandstands, watched the race. We're going to do another video on that because that's important. We need to talk about that. But anyhow, when I left the garage area, I felt like I had a pretty good understanding of what's kind of been going on and what's happening and what the deal is. So then I read a report. Some reporter put out a story, and they were talking about how the owners were forced by NASCAR to sign this agreement. And they went on just bad-mouthing NASCAR, bad-mouthing how it was done, put the owners in a bad spot, blah, blah, blah. Typical negative journalism about our sport that I always gripe about. And I remember thinking, you talk to either different people than I talk to, or the people lied to me, or they lied to you, or you tried to make a story out of a generalization or somebody may have said something. I don't know, but I do know this. I don't get lied to. Those folks that I talk to in the garage area, guys, they don't lie to me, all right? So anyhow, but regardless of all that, the two takeaways, I had two takeaways when I left that garage area. Number one, the big thing was a sign of relief. These guys were just so relieved that this was over. And you got to remember, they've been fighting this thing for 2 years. They've been fighting it. NASCAR's been fighting it. That's number one. Number two was the general feeling that when you're negotiating, two or more parties are negotiating some kind of deal, business deal, relationship, whatever it might be, when it's over, neither side gets 100% of what they want. And I mean, I've been in those my whole life negotiating deals. Hardly ever do you have one side that gets 100% of what they want, right? And that's kind of where this fell in line. I mean, the teams didn't get 100% of everything they thought they wanted or needed. NASCAR didn't get 100% of everything they wanted or needed or thought, okay? So to me, it's just a typical business deal, a thing that just, it come down to, this is the best, this is all this side's going to give, this is all this side's going to give, here's where we are, sign the deal or don't happen, right? And that's kind of what happened. So the owners that I talked to, it was just such a sign of relief, right? Been going through this for 2 years. They can get on to the business of racing now. They can get on the business of planning what they're going to do. You got sponsorship. You got all this stuff that revolves around this. And this charter deal, man, it's a big deal. I mean, it's a big-ass deal. It really goes back, talk about it, how the beginnings back in the 90s when our sport was so popular. I mean, the sponsors in those days, man, because they're so popular, we weren't beating them off at the door. But if you had any kind of PR abilities about your team at all and you're a reputable team, you could get a sponsor. I mean, it was not easy, but it wasn't hard like it is now. I mean, you could get sponsors. And what happened was become so popular, we had 43 teams each week, right? Starting races. You had 43 for the most part. A lot of times there, I remember we had 43, 44, 45 fully funded good race teams, okay? And what happened, we started sending some of these race teams home because they didn't make the race. I mean, we're talking like a Fortune 500 company sponsor that missed the race, right? And that's bad. That's not a good deal, man. You want these sponsors in these races. So that's kind of what started the provisional thing, where we had a couple of provisionals, then we added more provisionals, then we added champion provisional, okay? That was kind of the prelude to the charter system. And the charter system came along, and that was one of its goals to do that. I think I heard Dale Jr. saying that was the goal, and now it's morphed into being this franchise thing. Well, that was one of the goals, but one of the other goals of the franchise was to give owners value for their race team if they got out of the sport. I mean, every race team owner that ever was in our sport, when he got out from that Kekoffer guy in the 50s, right up through Junior Johnson, Bud Moore, all these guys, when they got out, the value of their team was whatever that welder and cutting torch and sheet metal equipment would bring at a yard sale or a fire sale, okay? That's the value of their team. So the charter thing, one of the deals with the charter was in hopes that it would give value to that team owner, okay? So if he wanted or needed or wanted to leave the sport, he could sell his charter and have some blue, so we call it blue sky value or value more than just a fire sale, equipment sale would be. And really over the years, this thing has morphed into thinking it's a franchise thing, and it's not a franchise thing, man. We're not the MLB. We're not NFL. Our system, our entity's different. Our business model is not like any of the other professional sports. This is not a franchise situation. We're still independent contractors. Everybody's independent contractor. So, the new TV deal, and that's kind of how this all got up to where we're at now, right? So the new TV deal comes along, and everybody's wanting a bigger piece of that pie. The teams are wanting a bigger piece of the pie, some other things. And, for 2 years, they've been negotiating. They waited on the TV deal to get signed. That was a big thing. We got to get the TV deal signed. All right, we got that signed. Now we can get serious about our negotiations. Well, they did, and it got to the point where it was very obvious NASCAR wasn't going to give any more. They said, here's what we're going to do, right? And the team owners said, well, this is all we can give. So when you get to those deals in these situations, that's when everybody has to step down and think, all right, what's the best deal for me? What do I need to do? Do I need to sign this deal, or do I need to walk away, right? All the guys that I talked to wanted this thing done. They wanted it over with. They were tired of dealing with it. They were tired of taking up so much of the time, so much of the efforts, so many questions unanswered about what are we going to do going forth by race team? This charter deal is signed, it's not signed, and we're going to have charters, not going to have starters. Have I got to have a different sponsor? Is my structure got to be different? All these things that go through these owners' minds or deals, right? About whether this charter thing is going to happen or not, or what's it going to look like, all got put to bed. It all got put to bed. It's all rested, with the exception of 23 Michael Jordan, Denny Hamlin team in front row. Obviously, they feel stronger that they want, and that's the other thing too. Nobody would come off the hip about what more concessions they want. And back up a little bit. The people I talked to, nobody talked about any specific things with me. All right. Like specifically, we didn't get this or we wanted that and we got that, but here's what's going on. So when we talk about Michael Jordan, Denny Hamlin's team in front row, then again, nobody would give specifics about it. And to be honest with you, I know a couple of the guys talked to me about it. They didn't even know what the specifics were. They kind of thought maybe they might know, but they weren't 100% sure exactly what those teams were holding out for. Okay, and that's fine because they got their own deal. Now, moving forward, what's going to happen? Hell, I don't know. It's hard for me to believe that. Gosh, that team won't be here next year, or front row for that matter. I just kind of find that unfathomable that they wouldn't be part of our sport. This thing will get worked out. The other part of it is, if they do come off the hip with something a little bit more generous, that if NASCAR does do that, then that'll go through all the teams, I'm sure. But you got to understand, man, NASCAR's a dictatorship. They always have been. It's been that way since the beginning, and you go into it knowing that, and it's a very viable, successful dictatorship, right? And one of the reasons that it's been successful, in my opinion, is that it's a dictatorship. It always has been. And I think that's one of the reasons that this thing exploded the way it did through the 80s and 90s. The decisions that were made with Mr. France and Mr. France Jr. and now everybody that's in charge of it now, it's their game. You come into this sport as an owner or driver or whatever, the deal, right? You know the business. If you're coming in as a driver, of course, you know all that. But if you come in as an owner, you know the structure. You know the business structure of this sport. You know what it is. You should know, if you've got any scruples at all or any smarts, you should know what you're facing, what your battles are going to be, the financial part of it, what that's going to entail and what it's going to mean. And, when you get here and you do that, right, then, I don't know how you're going to think you're going to change that when the people who have been here for 30 years as owners, 20 years, integral part of our sport, when they agree to this thing, I'm not sure how that plays with the guys that don't sign. I'm not criticizing 23. I'm not criticizing those guys. I'm just telling you facts of kind of how this sport is and the way it is. And sometimes, man, you got to swallow your pride and just, go with the best, move your best foot forward and go with it. But, I guess my point, here's what I'm trying to say, guy. Here's what all that means. You don't bully NASCAR. You just don't do it. You don't bully it. I remember Denny said on his podcast a while back, they talked about, we've all heard it as drivers and all, this sport was here. If you're causing a problem, you go to NASCAR, they'll tell you this sport was here before you got here. It'll be here when you're gone. Now, if you want to be here and enjoy it while you're here, fine. If not, you go on, right? And it's always been that way. And Denny was talking about, I'm not sure that holds as much weight as it used to, okay? Well, I'm not sure that Denny's correct on that. I'm not sure about that one. But, NASCAR has never been bullied, okay? You're not going to bully them. You're not going to bully them today, right? I mean, that's just, it's ingrained in them, man. It's just the way they operate. They've been so super successful with the way this thing has been run for all these years. Yeah, and I know we're in a new era and it's just 2024 and all that, but the basic design of this sport and the basic philosophy of this sport and what got it to where it's at and where it needs to be going forward, you're not going to, I don't think you're going to change NASCAR's thinking in that. And they have evolved. They've evolved big time. To tell you the truth, they've done a lot of things that really surprised me. I didn't think they would ever do. Just, but it's all about the betterment of the sport. And they, they stick to their guns. They stick to it. I mean, a lot of times I've seen this with other owners over the years, man. The other owners will have valid points, and I'm thinking, man, they're exactly right. And NASCAR bucks them, right? And they don't go along. And it turns out, well, I'll be damned, NASCAR was right about that. I've just seen it happen so many times. But anyhow, I wanted just to tell you for actual facts, what these owners are thinking. Number one, it's over with. It's relief. My deal's signed. I don't have to worry about that crap no more. Number two, I didn't get everything I wanted, but it's good enough for me to survive and thrive and keep on going. Okay? That's all you really need to know about this charter deal. Whatever happens with Jordan Hamlin's team in front row, whatever happens, he'll get it worked out one way or the other, and we'll go on down the road and race next week. So anyhow, just wanted to pass that along to you guys. I felt like y'all deserve to know, exactly how most of these guys feel. Toodaloo. Goodbye.